Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k Necrons. We've got a review video for you today and it's going to be one of our units in the Necrons index, of course. This time we're going to be talking about the Canoptek Scarabs. Canoptek Scarab Swarms, one of the best units pound for pound in 9th edition. Are they still going to keep their throne? Are they still going to keep their crown? We're going to work that out in this video. So we're going to, of course, go through the datasheet, go through our Planet 40k rating at the end of the video, go through the pros and cons. We're going to do all that stuff in this video. Just remember to like and subscribe before we crack on. Right, let's get on to the rear side of the data card. Now, a unit of 3 costs you 40 points. They used to be 45, I think. Again, they used to be 15 points a model, so that was 45 for a min unit of 3. So they have gone down by 5 points, which is kind of cool. Now, unfortunately, we cannot take them in units of up to 9 anymore. We can only take them between 3 and 6, well, 3 or 6 really. That's the most realistic way of doing it. So you're not going to get those large units anymore, which is, you know, some people did used to play. I personally didn't, but some of you did. Now, every model is equipped with the feeder mandibles, and we need to, in fact, talk about those keywords at the bottom of the left-hand side of your screen, in fact, because there's a few little nerfs in there. First of all, Swarm. Now, unfortunately, Swarm interacts slightly different in this edition with terrain. They're not going through walls in the same way that infantry does. So that's a big nerf, really, isn't it? And also the fly keyword. Fly is not as good as it used to be in 9th edition because you've actually got to measure the diagonal distance going over terrain. You don't get unlimited distance anymore in terms of movement. So those two things combined means you literally have to go around terrain or fly over it, but taking away all the movement from the diagonal measurement, which kind of sucks for flying units in general. That's the rear side of the data card. Let's flip this thing over, and there's already a slight little nerf to that movement, and it's already, well, it's there. 9-inch movement. We used to have a 10-inch movement, so we've dropped an inch as well just from that. So that combined with fly, combined with swarm, yeah, not great, not great. The toughness has also gone down to toughness 2. It was toughness 3, which means even standard, strength 4 bolt gun weapons are going to wound on 2s. Yeah, that hurts a little bit, I'm not going to lie, that does sting. 6+ armor save, wounds 4, there as they were. Leadership 8+, and objective control is 0. That's also pretty bad. I mean, these things in 9th edition, they used to get objectives secured with the Nihilak Dynasty or the Eternal, what do you call it now? You know what I mean, the Obsec Dynasty, basically. We used to get these things onto an objective, steal an objective for basically 40 points or 45 points, and yeah, they were so good. Now it's, you don't have any objective control at all. So their use and their role is completely different this edition, but we'll go over that later in this video. So the melee weapons, you've got the feeder mandibles, they've got lethal hits, which virtually was what they had previously. Any unmodified hit roll of a 6 will automatically wound. They already had that, so it's just a different name for it, I suppose. They used to have only 4 attacks a model, they've now got 6. So they gain 2 each. A min unit of 3 of them is going to have 6 additional attacks, which kind of makes up for what I'm about to say right now, because the weapon skill has dropped to 5+, it used to be a 4+. So only a third of the dice are actually going to hit. And of course the lethal hits will help there with that. But they already had that, right? And the strength is only strength 2. It used to be strength 3. It's now strength 2. So even toughness 4 models were wounding on 6s. Which is also a killer. So yeah, in terms of the damage department, they're not doing a lot. I mean, the AP is 1, damage 1. We kind of expected that part. But they're not doing much in terms of damage. The lethal hits may help on a unit of 6 maybe. But realistically, that is not their game. Now moving over to the ability side of the data card, we've got Deadly Demise 1. So they actually do explode when every time you lose one of these bases, they will cause an explosion if you roll a 6 on the explode ability, Deadly Demise. It's only 1 mortal wound within 6 inches, but they can effectively explode onto each other. If you've got a unit of 6 and one goes bang, if you do roll a 6, then the unit is going to take a mortal wound. So it can pass on and trigger a few explosions there. It's got reanimation protocols, of course, because now everything, including the Transect Guitar Shard, has reanimation protocols, which is great. The 2 unique abilities, self-destruction. So at the start of the fight phase, if this unit is within engagement range of 1 or more enemy models, you can select 1 model in your unit to destroy, and if you do not roll for the model's deadly demise. Instead, you select 1 enemy model within engagement range. On a d6, adding 1 to the result if it's a vehicle. On a 2, 3, 4 or 5, they suffer D3 mortal wounds, which is already better than Deadly Demise 1. And on a 6+, the unit will suffer D3 plus 3 mortal wounds. So if it's a vehicle, you only need to roll a 5 or more to get the D3 plus 3 mortal wounds, which is actually pretty good. Pretty good. I mean, that's an average of 5 right there. So what I would do with this ability, if you've got one of your Canoptek Scarabs already damaged, maybe it's on 1 wound left, maybe it's on 2 wounds left, definitely just go for this. Just use the explode ability. It's completely free this edition. In 9th edition, you used to have to pay a command point to do this. It was a stratagem. It's now free, so you may as well make use of it. We've got reanimation protocols anyway, so the likelihood is the model may come back. I mean, of course, you're still in a fight, so you're going to lose potentially more models as well. But you're probably going to get it back, and you're going to cause more damage in this manner. The other ability is Swarm, so while an enemy unit is within engagement range of this unit, you subtract 1 from their objective control characteristic to a minimum of 1, which is one of the methods of using the Canoptek Scarab swarms. Putting your opponent's units from objective control 2 to 1 potentially, or 3 to 2. It could literally swing you the objective if you've got another unit on there that can then steal that objective. And that isn't in a particular phase, it's just all game round. If you're doing this, you're going to -1 to their objective control, which is a really cool ability to have. Now let's talk about the battlefield role for the Canoptek Scarabs. First of all, they're going to be a good unit screen. Because they're so cheap, they're 40 points for a unit of 3. You only need 3 or 6, depending on the size of the unit you're trying to screen. You can use these to defend your Doomsday Arcs, maybe your Necron Warriors, maybe it's one of your Catan Shards. There's lots of things that you could do with these to screen off enemy units from charging into them units. Of course, you can't defend from being shot at, but that takes away one of the phases completely in the fight phase, doesn't it? They've got to get through your Scarab screen before they get to your good stuff. Also, they can be used for a deep strike screen. You can put them in your own quarters to defend enemy units coming in on turn 2 onwards with deep strike. They've got to, of course, stay more than 9 inches away from your unit. So if you've got a 40-point unit there and a 40-point unit on the other side, that's a massive couple of 9-inch radius bubbles that you're going to defend your back lines from Terminators and all sorts, really, isn't it? All sorts. You're then going to use this to lower your objective control for your opponents, which could, like we just said a minute ago, that could be really handy for stealing objectives, whether it's primaries, whether it's secondaries. It's going to be very useful. You're going to be tying up enemy units, especially shooter units. If you've got a unit of Desolators, for example, and you manage to get hold of them, you probably won't because they're going to be right at the back with indirect firepower. But if you can get hold of a unit like that, they're not going to be fighting you back as well as a melee unit would, and you're going to then prevent them from shooting. They've got to fall back, and if they fall back, they likely can't shoot unless they've got some sort of ability that will allow them to. So that is something else you can do with them. You've got the Explode ability, and then you can reanimate straight after, which is cool. And I also like this last one, which is you can use them to do an action. Now, of course, in 10th edition, they're not called actions anymore. They basically say if you're eligible to shoot, which all units are. They've confirmed that in the rules commentary. Even a unit of Scarabs are eligible to shoot, even though they don't have ranged weapons. Then they won't be able to charge that phase or shoot, but they can't. And they can then do an action effectively, which is maybe it's deploy teleport homers or whatever the action is that you've got in your given mission or secondary objectives pack. So they're good for all those kind of standard things. Now, as for some synergy with units, first of all, I want to talk about the command barge, the Catacomb command barge with a carrier wave. It's an aura for all Necron units within 6 inches. You're going to add 1 to the objective control. All of a sudden, your Canoptek Scarabs have objective control 1. For 40 points, you're gaining, well, 3, I suppose. 3 objective control if you get all 3 of them onto the objective. Potentially you steal it. Potentially you're denying your opponent from having it. That's something you could do. The other unit synergy would be from the Canoptek Spider with, well, there's 2 abilities here that will relate to your Scarabs. The first one is the Canoptek Swarm. So in your command page, you select the Scarab Swarm within 6 inches of your Canoptek Spider, and you return a Scarab Swarm unit back to the unit. Because you've not only got reanimation protocols, maybe you've got double reanimation protocols because of a reanimator, but then the Spider also brings a whole base back, which is a 4 wound model, which is very good. And the Gloom Prism Aura, you've effectively got a 4+ Fear Pain saves for all units within 6 inches of the Spider, but these are for just psychic attacks only. So psychic attacks will have them written in their range or melee attacks. You just got to look at the keywords there. Another bit of synergy is from the Technomancer with the Sovereign Coronal. I'm not saying this is the best thing, I'm just throwing this in here. You can effectively give them a +1 to the hit roll. They're probably not going to need it. You've also got the Technomancer ability, so you can heal the model D3 lost wounds. Again, probably not the best target for this ability. You're probably better serving this on a Catan Shard, the Doomsday Arc, Ghost Arcs, that kind of stuff. But you could also use it for these, I suppose. But the main ability here, which I'm kind of synergizing, is the Canoptek Control Node. I personally not used it this edition, so this is just purely theory hammer here. But when you're within 6 inches of a Canoptek unit with the Technomancer, it's a +1 to the hit roll, which means you kind of don't really need to use the Sovereign Coronal, do you? You wouldn't need to stack both of them, but you've got the option of either or. The control node is free, so you're probably better off just taking that. And we kind of already mentioned it when we were talking about the spider. You got the Canoptek Reanimator to get D3 additional reanimation protocol rolls, which is also very cool. So let's move into the pros and cons for the Canoptek Scarab Swarm. There's quite a lot to talk about here. Start with the pros. We've got cheap, 40 points, very cheap. Every list I do at the moment virtually has one of these units in. I just throw one in there. I've got 40 points left. I'm already full of crypto throws. And I think it's only the Royal Warden that's 40 points, and you don't really need to take that. So I always throw in these guys, unless I want to upgrade something else that's a bit more, which already would be in my list anyway. They're a great screen unit. We spoke about that in the battlefield role, whether you're screening off from deep strike or helping to assist, the defense of your Catan charge, your Doomsday Arcs, your warriors, so your opponent has to charge through them to get to the juicier stuff. They can tie up gun units, which is a very effective method of stopping them shooting. They remove an objective control of your opponent's units. Nice. They've got the self-destructibility, also nice. They're super easy to hide because they're virtually flat on their bases. And with the dense terrain we've got in this edition, in the tournament settings anyway, they're so easy to hide that your opponent literally cannot see them most of the time. And they're a great action unit because, yeah, they're not doing much else. As for the cons, they're only toughness 2 and a 6+ armor save. In fact, I've not put this here, but the weapon has also been absolutely nerfed, so I probably should have fit that on there. I'm not going to bother now. I've said it now. No object control. They've got object control 0 unless you get a command barge, which in itself isn't the best unit this edition. You can't put enemy units below 0 object control, which unfortunately, that would be really cool if you could put them to 0, but unfortunately you can only put them to 1. So going up against units that have already got only 1, it's not going to have any effect. You can only get 6 per unit in 10th, not 9, which, that kind of sucks for some people. Swarms cannot move through ruins, they have to go over or around them. And of course, that's going to interrupt with fly as well, with enough to fly. And finally, they're just doing minimal damage in general. Now, after all being said there was a lot of pros, there was a lot of cons. I still use them in almost every list. If I've got points spare, I'm either looking at the crit rolls, like I mentioned, I'm either looking at the enhancements, which I've already kind of got them on my leaders, and you can only have up to 3 anyway. So really, if I've got 40 points spare, I'm either upgrading something to a better something, which I've already got them in my list, so I don't really need to do that. So I'm just looking at the Scarabs, and I'm thinking about the primaries, I'm thinking about the secondaries, and I'm thinking, what things do I have to do actions? I say actions. What things do I do that can do those kind of things and have that role without being seen? The Scarabs are the perfect unit to do them. Yes, you've got a Reanimator that could do those kind of things. You've got melee units that, maybe the Lich Guard with the shields can potentially do stuff like that. You've got maybe Tomb Blades, but they're 80 points. So for 40 points, you can virtually do the same thing. You can get 2 units of these for the same as Tomb Blades, as an example. So for me, these guys are still rated quite highly. They've just got a completely different role in the game for 10th. But they're not top tier. They can't be top tier because they are definitely an afterthought for me. But for my Planet 40k rating today, I'm going to be going with the Planet 40k rating of 4 stars. So guys, that's my rating today. You have to let me know yours down in the comments below. Make sure you are subscribed on your exits. Thank you all for watching. See you in the next one.